Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Wynn's Kitchen podcast. I'm your host, Wynn Austin, and the founder and CEO of Wynn's Kitchen. Since we just celebrated the official Women's Entrepreneur Day, it's a topic that's near and dear to my heart because I'm a woman entrepreneur. And I am so excited to introduce you today, my guest, Soon Hagerty, the founder of Boundless Futures Foundation. Their mission is to provide financial and leadership resources for aspiring female entrepreneurs who are building businesses to solve today's biggest social issues so they can have a boundless impact in society. Welcome, Soon, and thank you so much for being on the show.
Hi, Wynn. I'm so excited to spend some time with you.
We talked before, and I was so inspired by you and what you're doing that I wanted to have you on the podcast. Can you tell us a little bit about what inspired you to create a foundation that's specifically for women entrepreneurs?
Well, to start, women inspire me, and specifically female founders. It kind of comes from my roots. My parents and I and our family immigrated here from Vietnam when I was 5 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And, when you have 7 kids in tow with $300 in your pocket and starting life, you have to be very innovative and resourceful if you want to break some ground.
Yes.
And so my parents started a business when they looked around where they were in California.
Mm-hmm.
I realized there was a need for some diversity in food.
Mm-hmm.
And they started this business that still exists today that we import and export exotic fruits and vegetables. And my mom was an entrepreneur.
That's so amazing. And I love that we share a similar story. I mean, my family immigrated here in 1983. I was the baby. I was, I think, 2.5 years old. But my Uncle Frank, who is an American, actually sponsored 14 of us from Vietnam.
Oh my God. Yeah.
we all lived together in like a mobile home park. And just from there, everyone was able to slowly but surely become business owners and homeowners and really pave the way, to create a future for me. So
that's amazing. I also have an uncle. Uncles are really good people.
Yeah.
He fought in the war with my dad for the South. And he came here a few years before us. And I think if I remember correctly, he saved $500 a month for 4 years.
Wow.
To pay for all of our paperwork. So I think that was 9 people. So uncles are great, aren't they?
They really are. Yeah. My Uncle Frank definitely, he's the one that really inspired me to, focus on education, to read. So I'm definitely a bookworm because of him. Like I always got a new book for Christmas. And just, it really helped drive my passion for learning and growing as a person. So.
Awesome.
And then, so can you share your entrepreneur journey with us and how it influenced you to create the foundation?
Yeah. So when I moved to the United States, we grew up in Central California. So I was in Fresno and I graduated college and I realized I had 2 paths that I really wanted to go through. I wanted to go either do PR or I wanted to do television. I wanted to be a broadcast journalist. So I did a little bit of both. I moved from Fresno with a degree in psychology, and I just wanted to help build brands and tell stories. And so both of those really do that. So I moved to LA, no job, interviewed for about 3 weeks, landed a PR job at a PR firm, which I ended up working there for 7 years.
Wow.
And, as head of VP of Client Services, really around the luxury and the automotive space.
Okay.
I represented like the Volkswagen Group brands, Lamborghini. I represented many kind of luxury brands.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, I one day, it's one of those like, you would call it maybe a failure or a stumbling block, and it becomes a great opportunity. Mm-hmm. I was supposed to help take the business over. My boss, the day we met, said, I'm not ready. And I had given up other job offers. And so that day was the first day ever in my life that I've ever quit a job on the spot.
Wow.
So literally, I just pushed myself away from the conference table and said, you know what, I'm done.
Wow.
And I cried for 2 days. And then Wednesday, Friday morning, a friend of mine who happens to be my husband today was in
Oh,
and said, stop your crying. You're going to start your own PR agency. And I did.
wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So no experience. I started a company called Lux Communications, and a couple of clients from my previous agency came with me. Lamborghini was a good one. And
That's not a bad first client.
yeah, it was great. Yeah, I had a really, strong relationship to help build the brand in the US. So I was super grateful for them. And so I started my first agency when I was 30 with no experience, just experience in the business, in the execution of communications, but not running a business. So
Not starting
I
the business.
learned a lot on the job. And then I married my husband and I moved to Michigan. So I sold that firm, and with that partner, we started another firm. So I started my second business when I was 35.
Okay.
And ran that. And then I decided to divest my shares and work fully for my husband's company, Hagerty. And we insure vintage automobiles. We do events for the car world. And then I moved to Michigan. When I was there in Traverse City, there is no ethnic diversity. So like a Dumbo, I started a restaurant.
The Vietnamese restaurant, right?
Yeah. I don't recommend starting a restaurant. Almost as tough as launching a food product line.
Yes.
But it's hard work, but it's 6 years old, and we donate $1 per bowl to charity. It's called the Food Bowl. And we do that because it's a way for me to thank the U.S. for taking us in as immigrants. So it's that full circle.
I love it. I love it. And I think it's, I think pho is so well known all over the world now. I mean, I think there's only been 2 places I've traveled to that doesn't have a pho restaurant.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, if I had it in me, but which I don't.
Well, I'm telling you, don't even echo the word restaurant.
I've been asked so many times, like, oh, you love to cook. Why don't you open a restaurant? And it's,
it's not the same as cooking, by the way.
It's not the same as cooking.
It's not the same
for your family and your friends. And I just knew it wasn't the lifestyle that I wanted, because my family owned nail shops.
Oh, yes.
And so my mom worked 7 days a week.
Oh my God.
And I grew up in a nail shop after school, hanging out in the nail shop, hanging out there on the weekends. And it was our entire lives. And so I always tell people I have like nail shop trauma,
Exactly.
I do my own nail shop trauma.
Yeah, if you have a spa day, do not ask Wynn to go get her nails done.
No, I'll do everything else. I don't want to get my nails done.
Yeah, it's the same. It's really, there's really great things about running a restaurant, because you bring that food and that culture and that hospitality, but the day in, day out and grind of it is really tough. But I think making my restaurant mission focused with $1 per bowl to charity.
Yeah.
On the days I don't want to strangle myself, I do think about that. I live another day.
That's entrepreneurship. And I listen to so many podcasts, and it's true. A lot of them mention that there's not enough talk about the hardship of entrepreneurship, and that social media really glamorizes it, like being a founder and all these things, which it's true. I love. It's like, it still blows my mind, like, but making a sauce for my own kitchen for myself, and then for my friends, and then my neighbors, and then visiting a city I've never been to and seeing my product on the shelf. Like, it's amazing. My mind. Or my friends, they have a place in Idaho, and he went to Idaho, and I'm like, well, can you swing by the store? And he swings by, and there it is. I'm like, people in Idaho are making pho at home.
Oh my God. You're kind of running a restaurant without all the stress side of it.
Right. I just want, to bring like the awareness of Vietnamese sauces and food, and teaching people how to prepare it at home, and just really learning the culture and the flavors, right?
Yeah.
So
It's
always,
delicious. I've had your products. I tried them.
thank
It's
you.
lemongrass. Oh my gosh,
Oh,
I'm obsessed.
that's the brand new baby. I love it because I love lemongrass, but you know how it is preparing lemongrass.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like-
Oh my God. Yeah. I just rather
so,
buy top sealed delivered.
oh my gosh. So I think all three of my sauces are that it's created because I was like trying to solve my own problems,
Yeah.
and creating shortcuts for myself. So tell me soon, in your own words, what is the mission of your foundation and how do you define success?
Yeah. That's a great question. I really think it's about, speaking of solving your own problems, when I think about starting my own business at 30 years old, with no experience in running a business, a couple of things you're always worried about is when's the next sale? Can I pay my rent?
Yes.
Can I pay my vendors? Why the hell am I doing this? Right.
Yes.
And so I think access to financial capital is really important.
Mhm.
And I started it because when I started thinking about where I am in my life, and I have, finally to a point where I have some resources where I can really think, how can I use these resources for good?
Yeah.
What's important to me? And I look about my history of entrepreneurism, my husband's history of entrepreneurism. And I think about like, what are the things that really keep people up at night when you're an entrepreneur? The first is access to capital. And the second is mentorship, like having questions. Like, when I start my business, is it an LLC? Is it a Inc? What type of entity? How much should I pay people? How much should I invest in marketing versus operations? So lots of questions that nobody has the perfect answer to, but it's tough to find on your own. So my mission of the foundation is to lower those stressful points and give access to capital, and then to be able to create a mentorship program. So we give two types of grants. We give an individual grant to women who start a business that has a bigger social element. So either their business has to solve a social issue, like a health issue or a societal issue, anything that is a societal issue, or they donate a portion of their proceeds, like let's say to the environment. So it has to solve a social issue. And so we give $25,000 grants to women who has a business less than 3 years old. And then we also give them access to something which I think is the most valuable, which is the advisory circle. It's for women who have started their own business. We're just starting with the 4, but we've already added a few more on. And you can learn everything from reviewing your P&L to leadership strategies, to accounting strategies, to marketing, branding, scaling, manufacturing. So access to capital and access to experts.
I think those, being an entrepreneur myself, I think those are the two biggest key points, right? Because sometimes you have so many people are pitching so many things to you. Oh, you have to do this first. You have to do this first, and it costs money, right? And just having a sounding board of experts to really, I think, keep you focused and say like, okay, yeah, that's great, but maybe that's not the right time right now. This is your priority on your P&L. Like, and I wish, I have a very eclectic background in my career. Also, I have a finance degree, came from banking, real estate. I was a wedding planner for 12 years.
Wow.
So I had my own wedding planning business. And so I really had I even though I was a business owner for a long time, CPG is a completely different animal. And I really underestimated the complexities of it. And I think that a lot of people give you advice without really knowing your financial situation or really knowing your circumstances. And it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, financial literacy is probably the most important element, especially for female founders, that you can't estimate. I mean, the first thing we do when people apply for our grants is they have to send a business plan. So we review their financials. And as much as we would like to give to every female founder who's got a great idea, we look at, do they have a sense of their financials? Can they think it through? I mean, are they our best shot at a great business, right? Because you
Right.
have thousands of applicants. We can only
Yes.
do so much. And we look at, does she have somewhat of a fair view of her financials? And we can help round that out. But they can't be clueless about the financials. That's
No.
so important. And we find more often than not, financial literacy is very uncommon in many founders. And that was true of me for sure.
Right. I agree. I still struggle with even with my banking background because I think every industry there's different types of finance.
Right. Yes.
Yeah, so I think just really learning the important aspect of that particular industry makes a huge, huge difference and being guided from the very beginning. Like, don't, I know you saw that advice on LinkedIn, but you're not there yet.
Yes.
This is this is what you need to focus on. And this is where you need to be financially before you take the next step. So
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think when you're an entrepreneur, what people don't tell you is it's actually not what you think it is in terms of priorities. You actually have so many opportunities
yeah,
that you lack focus. That's where I actually think entrepreneurs go wrong. And I've been there. It's like you think, okay, I'm this entrepreneur. Am I going to get business? Are people going to be knocking at my door? And yeah, people will be knocking at your door. And you have to knock on some doors. The key is which doors are the right doors. We have a
right.
tendency to go mass versus focus. And that's where entrepreneurs get into trouble. They can easily outspend their budget within their first 1 or 2 years. It's like, the stats on a restaurant is most restaurants don't make it past a year. And a lot of them don't make it past 3 years.
Wow.
And, unfortunately, the restaurant that I took over in Traverse City lasted 8 months, which is brutal.
Wow. That's brutal.
You dream about this moment, but you got to be super savvy. And I think the financials are just one element. But the statistic that was really compelling to me when I started the foundation is 43% of US businesses are owned by women, but only 3% of women get access to the venture capital out there.
Right.
All venture capital, 97% go to men-led businesses. So
Right.
so there's this disparity. I think talent for me is equally distributed between men and women, but opportunity and equality is not, especially in the workforce or in the work world.
I agree. And I think as women, I think we are like, I know that's something I'm working on is saying no. I feel like I've always had a hard time saying no. And I think it's very common. I mean, I'm a mom, I'm an entrepreneur, but it's like, I run the household, I make dinner for my family. So it's a lot. I think that, but I think that women are just so passionate. I mean, we juggle so much no matter whether we work or not. I have friends that don't work, but they juggle a lot. I have friends that work that juggle even more than my friends that don't work. So we take on so much, and it's very disheartening to hear the inequality on the funding side. And I experience it personally,
And it's funny that you talk about saying no, because I only have one quote that's literally on my table, and I know our listeners can't see it, but you can probably, I don't know if you can read it.
Let's see. It's only by saying no that you can concentrate on the things that are really important. Steve Jobs.
Isn't that funny that you talked about that?
Okay, I need one of those lines.
I know. I think about that all the time. And so I think you build brands by saying no to the right things.
Right. And I think just staying really disciplined, staying really, really disciplined. And I feel like where I am, like, it's like, I said yes to so many things and, not all things I regret, but at the same time, it's like, okay, I've gone out there, I've learned, I've met these people. Now it's time to really hone in on what's important and just saying no and just saying, I don't need this. I don't need to talk to this person or that or networking too. I mean, I'm starting to become an introvert, extrovert. I'm like,
yes. I mean, I struggle with this too. I mean, I've started 3 businesses and I'm still trying to refine my schedule or refine my
Yeah.
priorities. But what I try to do is like block focused time every day to think.
Yeah.
I call it deep work. And I think that's, if you don't block it out, you end up just doing a bunch of little shit that
Yes.
doesn't add up to anything compelling.
Right.
And so every day I pick an hour where I turn my email off, I turn off my phone, and I just do deep work. And what that means for me is just jotting down ideas, coalescing ideas, writing content, thinking about what I'm going to be posting for the business, thinking about what my next article is. And so it's like, to me, that's really good work.
Yes.
I'm not perfect. Some days it doesn't happen, but you have to be intentional about your time as an entrepreneur, or everybody will define your priorities for you.
I completely agree. And that's something I'm working on. I think we all work on those things. But at the end of the day, we have to preserve our energy.
Yes. Yes.
Um, so yeah. And so Soon, what role do you think community plays in networking and the success of the women that you support?
Yeah, I think, you would think I would say women supporting women, which is true, right?
Mhm.
I mean, the majority of my team on the foundation are women, except for my husband. But
Mhm.
that's where the cool element comes in. I think the entire community has to support women,
Right.
men, women, children. But I
Right.
think like having your community around you is really, really compelling and helpful,
Mhm.
because if women succeed, they can help build, um, the community's income, family income. They have that independence. They hire people.
Yes.
They can easily contribute to society. There's research that shows women-led businesses more directly impact their society because they're more thoughtful of, if I employ this person or I create this business, I'm going to be looking at childcare. I'm going to
Yeah.
be looking at affordable housing. I'm going
Right.
to be looking at flexibility. And those are the things that are more top of mind to women than men. Right. And this is historical. This is not anything against men, but
No.
most men don't have to think about, maternity leave. They don't have to think about, childcare in general. History shows it's the majority of the home care is
Right.
still predominantly women. So as a female business owner, it's very top of mind to be able to say, you know what, Wynn, go ahead and, take off at 12. I know you've got to be at your kid's soccer game.
Right.
Most men aren't, that's not natural for them, even though there's incredible men that do that.
Yes. I agree. And I think that's why a lot of women have to leave the workforce. I don't have the statistics for that, but a lot of very smart, talented, educated women have to leave to stay home with the kids. And I've been lucky enough to, once I had kids, become an entrepreneur. And that comes with its own, doesn't mean it's basically 2 full-time jobs.
Yes, for sure.
But the flexibility alone was priceless.
Yeah.
It's the flexibility, being able to, pick up the kids from school, take them to school, without having them being daycare for, 12 hours a day, or, so I'm really grateful for that. But I can see that's probably one of the biggest challenges for young women.
Yes.
And so where do you see the foundation in 5 years? And what's your ultimate dream for the future?
Well, I was happy to get through the first year with all my hair intact. But a few wrinkles, but I still have hair, so it's okay.
Yeah.
I think I'm ahead. It's, the first year's gone well, so we're still in the baby phases of learning where we can make the most impact. I'm hoping in 5 years, as I'm thinking this through, that the community of the advisory circle gets larger, so you have more advisors to pull from, and then the community of founders gets larger, so you have a stronger network. Just because you're a grantee doesn't mean that for 1 year you're done needing help, right? You get your grant. So I'm hoping this becomes this larger, and I hate to use community because I feel like sometimes it's overused, but this huge network of female founders that I hope will continue to stay close forever through all their different journeys. So I hope it's a hub. I hope it's a community. I hope that even our, $25,000 that we give to women and $30,000 that we give to nonprofits, I hope that it's that one thing that puts them over the edge for success. Because I
Right.
can tell you when I was 30, and if somebody was to give me $25,000, like that would have been instrumental for me.
Right.
That's, 4 or 5 months of rent that I don't
Oh,
have to worry about, right?
right.
Laptops, it's computers, it's paying off credit cards. So I'm hoping that Boundless Futures can continue to give and have that monetary impact. But I think more important, I hope that we grow this large network that when you can always tap into. We started the conversation before the podcast of how you met Christina, and you said, oh my God, she's been so helpful. And
Right.
I'm sure she's been able to answer so many questions. And so we want to formalize that process a little bit. We want you to be able to say, soon I need to talk to somebody in manufacturing. I need to talk to somebody in HR. I need to talk to somebody in legal. So my goal is to not only help this community through the financial world, but really like lifelong mentorship.
That's amazing. And I'm so excited for you. And I just can tell you're so passionate about it. And, I'm a mother of daughters. I have two daughters. And, I never push entrepreneurship on them, but it's like, but they do see, how hard I work. And they've always been a part of all of my businesses. My oldest daughter, even when I was doing wedding planning, was like tying bows and putting stamps on envelopes. And
Yes, yes.
so I
It's
always,
pressure by osmosis, though. I mean, they will get this. They will get the entrepreneur bug. I mean, my mom was an entrepreneur. She never told me I had to be, but it felt so natural when I was.
I agree. I was like that too. I thought, I really thought that I was always going to be a banker. I
Hmm.
was started banking in high school as a teller, and I worked at B of A all through college. And then after college, they offered me a job. And so, um, I was a branch manager at 22 years old, and I didn't know what I was doing, but I was like, I only managed my mom and my sister, but I'll make it work. And, and I have always envisioned that I would just climb the corporate ladder and move back to San Francisco and just work in this corporate office. And I don't know, it was just 5 years in, and it just didn't feel right anymore.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
had
You had other plans and way in the back of your mind.
Right. And I had this need for creativity that I didn't know that I had. So it's fine. Life is definitely an adventure.
Awesome,
And
awesome.
so what would you say some of your biggest challenges as an entrepreneur that you faced in any of your career?
Yeah, I think, that prioritization, what's my next 5 steps? I think as an entrepreneur, if you're self-aware, you have a pretty clear view of what your problems are or
Mhm.
obstacles are. It's just what's that focused next step of prioritizing your time and your energy.
Yeah.
And how, like to me, my biggest kind of challenge of being an entrepreneur is how do I balance this like three-pronged characteristic of like you have to be financially savvy,
Yeah.
operationally savvy, and people savvy,
Yeah.
and knowing which pillar to lean on today, right? And
Right.
some days you need to say like, no, 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 we've got to focus on this. So I think it's like balancing those three elements on a daily basis. It's always this balancing act, but I think being clear what problem you're trying to solve is job number one as an
Mhm.
entrepreneur. What product your service or what problem your service or your product is trying to solve is job number one, and then executing and using which of those pillars you need to lean on.
I love that. I'm going to write those pillars down and which one I'm going to work on today. Because
Yeah.
you're right. It's, some days I just have to be out in public and talking and networking. And there are days where I'm like, I just really have to force myself to sit at my desk and crunch numbers
Yeah.
and emails. And even though it's not my favorite thing to do, it's sometimes the most productive day,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
that's where you move, things can move, and things happen is at the desk sometimes.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
And so what advice do you have for women who are just starting out their entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really good one. We just, stumbled upon it, but I think the first thing you have to do is you have to be clear what problem you're trying to solve. If you're not in the nonprofit world where those problems are clear, you're starting your business. So your product or service, what obstacle are you trying to solve for your customer? Once you're crystal clear on that, you can develop your plan. I would say the next thing you need to do is to just start. You have to put it on paper. You have to play with some logos, play with some mission statements. I think business is about inertia. Once you start, the energy continues. It's like writing a book, right? And so I think this is like when I started my first business when I was 30, it was out of necessity. But once I started, it was like the second day, I got up at 5 a.m. excited to write content for my website.
That's awesome.
So just start. Be clear what problem you're trying to solve. Just start. And then make sure that you are financially savvy about your business. That's one thing that I don't think I did well at the beginning. And if I was to look back, I think I would have been even much more successful had I taken some financial classes, had I had a mentor that was financially savvy. So those are the three things that I would focus on.
I love that. And I completely agree with you. I mean, I'm still shocked that I have Wynn's Kitchen here because I was just making sauce for fun. Talk about inertia. I was like, holy cow. Like it just kept pushing me forward and forward. But I agree. I think at first it was just kind of like a fun little side hustle project. And I didn't really learn about the economics, the unit economics of a CPG business. And so it's kind of like, oh yeah, then it's the excitement. Oh yeah, they said yes, sure, whatever you want, right? And then now it's like, I mean, now everything is like calculating margins to the penny. Like, oh no, I'm not responding until I calculate the margins.
Right. Like labels.
Yeah.
10-cent labels, 20-cent labels.
10 cent, 1 cent. And then you look at like the economics of, okay, 1 cent doesn't, like 10 cent doesn't seem like much. You times it by 10,000.
Yes. Oh, for sure.
Huge.
And that's just for one vendor, right? And so
one vendor, one thing I have to buy. It's like, okay, the pouches for Amazon, 5 cents. and then you get the bill and you're like, holy crap.
Because you have that capital up front and you may not get paid for 90 days. So I think like part of financial literacy isn't just the margins, it's cash flow.
It is
cash flow. And if you can't pace it out, you don't have a business.
It's very
important.
Yes. I think for CPG, food CPG, cash flow is very difficult.
Yeah. Similar of running a restaurant, you can buy equipment for $15,000 because it's something like if my cooler broke down.
Oh yeah.
I don't have a business. So that's $10,000. And you know how long that takes me to make that back? So that's the cash flow issue. If you don't have strong cash flow, you don't have a business for very long.
Right. Oh my gosh. Well, I think we are just entrepreneurial women are just amazing, fierce, resilient, and a little crazy. I tell people, I'm like, I cry all the time because, of course, in Instagram, they're like, oh, it looks like you do everything. Everything's easy. I'm like, no, it's not true. I cry.
You're not just an entrepreneur. You're also, like you have a podcast. You are a personality now. So I think you know what, and it's not necessarily my top piece of advice, but I think it's an important one is just celebrate your wins too.
Absolutely.
Those are the days where you think about gratitude. And it's really interesting to me, and I'm sure you experience this, is you look at other people and you go, wow, they're so successful. Look at how did they do this? And you kind of forget that other people look at you and say, oh my gosh, she got this product on the shelf by herself with virtually no capital and no help. And she's in, how many stores are you in?
I would say we're getting close to 300.
Yeah, 300 stores.
Yeah.
So maybe tears of joy versus tears of sadness.
Right. But it's like it's just, you have good days and bad days. And so you just got to pick yourself up. And the podcast came to mind because I was just connecting with other founders and trying to learn from them, and they're trying to learn from me. And so I said, you know what, why not record it and put it
Sure.
out there? And I've had so many people tell me, like, even if it's like five people, they're like, oh my gosh, I listened to your podcast and it really resonated with me. It helped me move forward. And if only one person
Yes.
out of all these episodes says that, it makes me happy. Like there's a purpose to it.
Yeah. And you're learning a lot too, I'm sure, interviewing everybody.
I'm learning so
Yeah.
much, and I love it. I love connecting with other people, and if there's a way to bottle that up and then share it with others on a scalable way, that makes me happy. So,
Well, awesome.
well, thank you so much, Soon, for your time and sharing all of your sage advice and your mission for Boundless Futures. I'm excited about, about all the opportunities that you're giving these other women entrepreneurs. And, we're all so happy. We're all in this together. And if there's any way that I can help contribute to that, please let me know.
At a big dinner party, we'll have all of your sauces when we celebrate all the grantees. I think that's the best way to do it. Well, thank you for your time. I enjoyed it.
Thank you so much.